Datuk, boleh kita mulakan Datuk ya?
Pukul 10 lah.
Terima kasih.
Buat jam tu tak betul.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahillazi hadana lihaza wa ma kunna linahtadiya laula an hadanallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Our respected speaker, IIUM Ombudsman, Yang Bahagia Profesor Emeritus Datuk Dr. Mat Tahir Mat Azhar, IIM community brothers and sisters. Let us begin our program by reciting Ummul Kitab Al-Fatihah. Amin. To all attendees, brothers and sisters, it is our pleasure to welcome all of you to this Integrity Talk number 1, 2022 from the Ombudsman Desk, which will be delivered by the IIUM Ombudsman with the topic entitled Good Governance. For your information, other than this Zoom webinar, we also streaming live on MSD Competency Development YouTube channel. To all attendees, a friendly reminder to time in your attendance and to fill in the evaluation form within 24 hours after end of this program. We thank you again for your participation. Moving on, without further ado, I invite Yang Bahagia Professor Emeritus Datuk Dr. Mat Tahir Mat Azhar, the IIUM Ombudsman, to deliver his talk. Silakan Datuk.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi. Thank you very much, Brother Adi, for the introduction. And I would like to just remind the topic today is good governance. And this word governance is used quite freely by many people on many occasions, but the meaning and the extension of the meaning may not be the same from one person or one group to the other. So today we take this opportunity to try and imbibe or get familiar and hopefully put into ourselves or absorb into ourselves that good governance should be part of our life and activities. So what are the scope of things that I will be touching upon? It's actually three main things. Simple definition of governance that we can remember. What is meant by good governance, which means also there is bad governance. And what are the elements of good governance? These are things which we will go into a little bit more details. The elements of good governance, and then perhaps if we have time, questions and answers or clarification or comments that anyone would like to give at the end of it. Now, straight on to the topic, the word governance is related to three familiar words that we already use almost every day. Government, that is one word related to governance, government, and then governing and govern. All these are words which are all related to organization or state or country or nation state. All these words: government, governing, govern, and governance. So let's go straight to define or try to understand what governance actually is. What it encompasses is that it is a system by which an organization is controlled and operated. Essentially, that's what it encompasses. And the mechanism by which the staff are held to account, and the ethics, risk management, compliance, and administration are all elements of governance. Why are these important? These are important because it influences decision-making and implementation of the decisions made. So having understood that governance is things that control and operate things, and it is based on the decision made by the group of people who are in charge of governing, and how the implementation is of the decision made. All these are encompassed in what is called governance. So when one thinks about it, there is no doubt, no escape that there must be a good governance and bad governance, things which don't have a system where the decision made and the implementation are faulty must be the result of bad governance. Good governance means it will yield or produce good decision making and good implementation of the decisions made. So immediately you can see that if you put it on paper, on the left side are characteristics or things relating to good governance. The decision makers are good decision makers. The decisions made are, again, good and robust. The implementation is faultless or minimum fault, and it follows due process. So that characterizes good governance. Anything opposite of that, which means bad decision makers, decisions made are floppy, implementation is poor or wanting, and due process is not followed, are bad governance, are features of bad governance. So that brings us to what are the elements of good governance. The first thing that we must see or realize or try and achieve is to achieve good governance is the governance must be consensus oriented, meaning that the result of the decision making is based on consensus, agreement of the majority without opposition, without real opposition, meaning opposition to the decision, not opposition members or party or whatever. This is called consensus oriented. And in fact, if you are familiar with the Islamic principles of decision making, it should be consensus oriented. In fact, when you read the Holy Scripture, there is a verse which says, which describes the decisions at the time of the revelations are being made, that good decisions and good people make decisions through consensus. What is the ayat for that? I may ask you. Dia secara syura, dan syura antara mereka-mereka itu yang membuat keputusan di dalam sesuatu hal. So it must be first consensus oriented, the basis. What is the second one? Second one, it is transparent. The decision made and the preliminary things that happen before the decision is made are all transparent, nothing hidden, no hidden agenda. Because the problem that is to be solved through the decision is clear, and the decision made is clear, and the implementation is clear. That is the other aspect of good governance, transparency. The third one is accountable. The fundamental requirement of good governance, accountability. And for example, if it is a local government, it has an obligation to report, explain, and be answerable for the consequences of the decision made. on behalf of the community it represents. A decision has been made, transparently made, with consensus of everyone, and then implemented. Now, the people involved in this must be accountable. If the result is good and positive, well and good. If it is not to the expectation or even a failure, then everybody is responsible and just accept it as it should be and not start blaming this and that and that. After all, it is a decision made transparently and through consensus of everyone. It's just like making a decision to go to war. If you win the war, well and good. If you lose the war, you should not start blaming this and that and that and that. Just prepare for another good occasion to win the battle. That should be the case. Now, the fourth element of good governance is inclusivity and equity. That means when you make the decision and implement, it should involve everyone who should be. If it is something that requires expertise of certain areas, all those people will be in or should be included. And that things are apportioned according to the ability and the expertise of each of those who are in the process of implementing or even monitoring or evaluating the decisions made. Fifthly, good governance must be participatory, meaning that all concerned must be able to participate in the whole process from beginning to end. If it is not, then it wouldn't be unusual if the expected optimum results are not obtained. And sixthly, the element of good governance is rule of law. You have a set rule, you have a set procedures, you have a set of good, what you call regulations, which should be followed to implement all these things. And if that is ignored, then the whole process of good governance from beginning to end is going to be flawed. So the rule of law should be supreme, should be followed and should be adhered to. If it is not, then it makes no meaning of all the things that you or has been decided by the organization. Rule of law, applicable to all and all the time. Then follows another element of good governance, which is responsiveness. The concerned authority, whatever the authority or the organization is, should always try to serve the need of the entire community while balancing competing interests in a timely and appropriate responsive manner. To put it simply, it must be adaptable. You don't run away from the principles of the thing or the final aim of the process, but you must be able to adjust to variations, changing situation and changing demand in a way that would be positive and facilitative to the implementation of the thing that you would wish to do, without compromising on the principles and the aim of the original mission that we set out to do. So that is what we would describe in one word: responsiveness, meaning ability to adapt. And eighthly, the whole process should be efficient and effective. Any process of implementing something that is not efficient or not effective won't help in good governance. The authority should implement these decisions made and follow processes that make the best use of available people, resources, and time to ensure the best possible results for the people, for the subject, or for the client of the members of the organization. I give you some examples of what would be an institution with good governance. When you look at it, you immediately can see that the organization has an integrated management system. That is one feature that you immediately will indicate that that organization has a feature, a principal feature of good governance. That means the management system is integrated, not isolated, or different sectors performing differently and deviating or meandering from the main purpose of the organization. So if you see that, then you begin to wonder that will this work, or will this be more likely not to work? So an integrated management system is an essential part of being able to implement and maintain good governance. Secondly, this is something which is not too unfamiliar with most who work here in this university and maybe in other places too, which is good documentation. You know, of course, that everybody, well, most people, not everybody, document things, but the documentation may be so poor or not adequate. That will not help in, even if you have so-called good governance. There must be good documentation. Good documentation means quick, accurate, and timely. There is no point documenting things 1 year after the event has happened, or backward documentation. Documentation should be timely, accurate, proper. So with these two features there, it is that step nearer to realizing and reaping the result of good governance. In real life, ISO certification and related procedures where a certain recognized authority come and say that, yep, you are good and you are on the way to implement this well, and you have a good governance, then that would be one feature that can facilitate or encourage or help certify that one actually has a good system with good governance. Of course, all this will rest on one thing: the leaders or the core people managing the thing, the top management, the middle management, and the implementers down the road are all people with leadership qualities. When we talk about good leadership or leadership, people tend to limit to the top fellow. No. Leadership is a quality that is to be inherent at all levels, with the highest level having the highest responsibility, accountability, and leadership, but the rest are not exempted from having leadership quality to enhance and be integrated with all the elements of the organization to make it work in the best possible way. So good leadership. Good leadership means what? Means the leaders are not forced to lead. Good leadership means there must first be the will to lead. Then you will be able to have the prerequisite of leading. Good leadership means the fellows are knowledgeable, the fellows are competent, the fellows are honest, the fellows are good at communicating, the fellows are good at boundary management, interagency management, and so on and so forth. So that is good leadership, and good at resolving conflict, good at consensus building, good at looking at threats and opportunities around to make the organization be successful more often than failures. So that is what would be an example of an institution with good governance. And following on, there must be training programs all the time for all categories of staff and members of the organization. Training program to make sure that the people are always motivated and current in their knowledge and always enthusiastic to contribute to the affairs of the organization. And then there is this thing called auditing. That means you must always be aware and wanting to know how you're doing. And this need not be forced from outside. It should be inherent within the organization to always evaluate oneself, whether one is doing well or doing so-so or doing badly, or there are things to be addressed or not. And internal auditing is one of the prominent features for any organization with good governance. In fact, as Muslims, we have to do internal audit every day for yourself, even as an individual level. How is my day today? Is my today better than my yesterday? If I have not been doing things to improve myself today better than yesterday, then maybe I have failed. So that is the spirit of internal audit, to help in the success of the organization and maintain good governance. And of course, you go into detail about having measures and procedures and installation of risk management system. The organization should be able to identify which are the risk areas in its running that would need care to make sure that these risks are attended to and these risks do not come to actually bite onto the organization to cause problems. Just like having your house free of fire risk or thieves or robbers coming in. So you install things which will reduce the risk of such undesirable occurrence. And then, of course, you have to be having reliable and continuous supply of needs. Needs mean staff need, financial need, re-evaluation need, and so on and so forth. So this must be reliable, and this must be a continuous effort and not just intermittent. And then to go on, the organization in terms of physical resources, this must be well maintained. The infrastructure, the equipment, and all apparatus and machines and things, because big organization must have all this, and this must be well maintained and tip-top so that things will work according to what it is being accorded to. And there must be continuous reports, continuous monitoring, and continuous renewal. What do we mean by continuous renewal? Means it is related to self-assessment, finding areas where one can improve and finding areas where one could possibly go into trouble and try to prevent them. And this would require continuous renewal, meaning staffs, members of the organization must be always conscious of the need of the organization and the need to enhance and the need to continuously put up with everything to ensure that the organization keeps on rising, improving, and attaining better things rather than being static, because being static is not what would be good for an organization. It must be always moving on, progressing and improving day by day, and today is better than yesterday, that kind of situation. I think I have said enough about what is good governance and how to achieve it, what are the elements and the components of good governance, and that if we try and do this, realize this, then inshallah the organization will achieve the aim in a way that is that would be an envy of everybody else. I thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. If there are any questions I'm able to answer, I will do so. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Dato'. Dato', for your information,
Yeah.
we have quite a number of participants, around 200 plus.
Okay.
Combination from the YouTube.
Kuantan tu?
Kuantan, need to see the names.
Okay.
So moving on, now we open the floor for question and answers.
Any question at all?
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikum salam.
Dato' Tahir, I am Rafiqul from Kuliah of Economics.
Rafiqul Islam.
Yeah, Rafiqul Islam.
Yeah.
Thank you. I enjoyed your talk. Thank you very much for your valuable sharing. I have, it's not a question, but as you said that the topic good governance is very, very wide. And many people have their own perspectives. The perspective you have put, this is one. And in this perspective, I would like to say two more components, which I feel that it's very important in organization. One is, you have mentioned that leadership should be communicative, but I would like to say that it should be separately mentioned, that if in the organization, if the communication is not that very good, what is happening in one sector and the other sector, people are not knowing, and that may create some kind of information gap. In fact, Peter Drucker, the management guru, he mentioned majority of the problems which an organization faces is due to the lack of communication. So this is one, Dato'. Another one is that appreciation or the recognition. People are doing their job. As you know that some people, they will be working extra mile. They will be working very hard to fulfill the organization aspirations. So they should be appreciated adequately. If they are not appreciated, not recognized adequately, they may feel bad and they may be demotivated. And you know that there are many instances they leave the organization thus just because of the lack of appreciation. So I think these 2 points, my humble opinion, are also important for good governance. Thank you, Dato'.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. Actually, the topic of appreciating communicating with people and effective communication is the prerequisite of anything, because it doesn't need Peter Drucker to mention that. Everybody must realize that communication is the essence or the fundamental of anything at all. Good communication, and that people understand each other and agreed upon the basis of any action that one would like to take. There is no question about that, and I agree entirely. And then with regard to rewarding things which are done by people in the organization, this is an understatement, because it is so important, and also that people don't actually understand what rewarding means. Because to me, a boss or the superiors in charge of many under them can reward their flock in so many ways. A good word that or praise is a form of reward. A letter of appreciation, handwritten, to someone who has done something good is a reward, a form of reward. Money, most people think it's just money and do it or some material benefit. Some people think that is the only form of reward people appreciate. No, I've just mentioned the other two before. And also reward can be in the form of promotion from a lower position to a higher position. That is all. And there are many kinds of reward. Even a smile is sometimes more rewarding than anything that you could imagine. So I couldn't agree with you more. But it's a separate big topic, rewarding work and rewarding people. I agree with you entirely, Rafiko. Thank you.
Thank you, Dato. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dato. Thank you, Brother Rafiko. By the way, Dato, with reference to your query just now, anyone from Kuantan, we received a few feedbacks from the chat, seperti Puan Julie Muhammad Jafri, her statement as I am from Kuantan, and also from Brother Cik Anwar Cik Muhammad, your former student from Kuantan, as per his statement.
Okay, thank you. Just curious.
So any more questions to Dato' from all attendees?
Assalamualaikum, Datuk Tahir. Zuraida from Kuantan, Datuk.
Yeah.
Okay. Datuk,
Yes.
What's your question? Okay, I'm not sure whether the question will come, even though I'm the one who asking, maybe some others have the same thing to get from Datuk, some advice good. Because of sometimes many of the administrators, I think they are also the secretaries to meetings in the university. They are the secretaries, appointed as the secretaries. So, and of course, they will assist the chairman in many things. And some of the things that after the minutes already sent out and decisions already made, but there are also sometimes that chairman might have different view on the previous decision that has been made. So the dilemma of a secretary sometimes happen here when, the ethical part, I think in a good governance, sometimes whether you are with the chairman, or of course you need to advise the chairman, but sometimes there are reasons why chairman change or review decisions. Sometimes it can be done through matters rising, but sometimes it can't. It's just we have to follow. So any advice and tips, Prof. Dato, regarding this, maybe on the part of the dilemma for the secretary. Thank you, Dato.
Thank you very much for that information. Actually, that phenomenon is quite common. And there are several ways of trying to sort it out, but I can appreciate the dilemma of people who are recording things. The fundamental thing is this, that I can say without any, any reservation, that decisions made at meetings which are agreed upon should not be changed. Shall not be changed. I use the word shall better. That means it cannot be changed. Especially if, say, give an example, that this policy will stop as of next month, end of next month, and a new policy will be followed. That's a decision. But if that decision is reversed without bringing it back to the meeting or to the people who are the decision makers, then that is bad governance. I want to be very frank, that is bad governance. So it will become a problem. So we have to call a spade, but if the decision is made and is in a written form, the decision is made in a written form, the interpretation can be different. The interpretation of different people can be different, but that can be discussed at the future or ensuing meetings. So that shouldn't be a problem at all. Just state that there is some ambiguity in this part of the decision, and that the wordings means something to one group and another thing to another group, and another to another group. So can we get this thing clarified in a very gentleman way? So there is no need to recoil and say, look, you are wrong, I'm right, or I'm wrong, you are right. No need, because the aim of the whole process is not for any of those, it's for the organization. So it takes a good leadership to be able to resolve that kind of situation. So that is what my comment is. If it is very directly contravening a clear decision, that is bad governance. If it is not, it is due to different interpretation, it should be discussed further. And that's a hallmark of good leadership and good governance. Does that answer your question?
Alhamdulillah, thank you, Prof. Datuk. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Dato'. Thank you, Madam Zuraida.
Assalamualaikum, Datuk Azmi here from Kuantan.
Yeah.
Datuk,
Azmi Dekan, Azmi Boss.
no,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, Datuk, just to get your insight and your wisdom on these issues of authoritative and consensus. You mentioned about consensus orientations in the practice of or element of good governance and authoritative. The issue is what happens when in exercising of authorization, sometimes we become a dominance and may lead to sort of so you understand the situation. That's so. How do you balance these two, between the orientations?
Can I give you what I think your question was? Your question is about leadership or a person in charge of something or organization which is authoritative. How to deal with the solution if the authoritative thing turns out to be controversial. Is that what you mean?
More or less, that too. More or less, that too. And how can stop this kind of practice?
You want to give a specific example, not necessarily personal.
You have been in the institution for many years. So just
so you okay. So I can tell you something. When people get leadership position, there are different types of leaders, and the followers are even more types of followers. So if a real leader that can deal the maximum and the optimum is one who is actually the one who can build consensus through the organization. That means he can get the majority to agree to the policy, consensus builder. But there are times when you don't have that. And that is where the problem may arise. It may not, because if you have all psychophans are just yes men, they will just say yes to the authority, whether good or bad. So back to your question, there are two types of leaders. Even good leaders, two types. One is task-oriented. That means if there is to him, there is a task to be done, task to be achieved. He will concentrate more on that, but less on the people. So if you appreciate that is his style, you tend not to call them authoritative. They are actually giving some benefit of the doubt, that they are actually so task-oriented that they don't care too much for people. So task-oriented. In a way, there are advantages and disadvantages. And then there is the other type, a leader, which is people-oriented. You see, they look at the task, but they look at the people trying to do it. They concentrate more on the person who are in charge of it and try to deal with the person to get the result desired. So these are the leaders whom we call, or I would call, people-oriented. The best of leaders are the maximum combination of these two qualities, task-oriented, people-oriented, in a ratio that is optimum, or in a changing ratio depending on the changing situation, which is very difficult to find leaders who are always like that all the time. So it is the ability of the person who feels that things are a bit hot now, is being very authoritative, to deal with this situation as best as it can be. It has to be very personalized. Even lions can be tamed. I mean, I can say that. Lion bagi dia sekutui daging dia diam kot. So I'm being sarcastic now. So it is the way that you deal with people, communication skill, because there are many ways to say the same thing to different people, and they will be able to take it in a way that would be less harmful to the organization. So the attitude and the approach to such a situation is to put first, what is the end game of all this thing? Work your way through achieving that, and ignoring or minimizing the eccentricities and the deficiencies and the shortcoming as you perceive it of the person. That being done, then at least there is less damage done. That is my approach to it. Because not everybody is ideal in everybody's eye.
Okay, thank you, Dato'.
You have heard of the saying that an authoritative guy to one can be a very confident guy, or somebody who sticks to his principle to another, or a very compliant, friendly leader to one is a very lackadaisical leader to another. So lots of things to consider before we do anything that would be detrimental to the proper mission and the real mission of the organization. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dato'.
Yep.
Thank you, Dato'. Thank you, Prof. Azmi from Kuantan.
Any more questions?
Any more questions from the attendees? I guess there is no more questions for Dato'.
Nope. Thank you very much. Thank you
Okay.
very much for listening. Assalamualaikum.
So thank you, Dato'. We have come to an end of our program. Again, we thank you, Professor Emeritus Dato' Dr. Mat Tahir Mat Azhar, for the fruitful talk. We also thank everyone for your participation in this program. And please do not forget to fill the evaluation form. A short note from our office of the Ombudsman. All are welcome to engage with our office in the spirit of resolving issues and enhance the university we are working in for the benefit of all. With that, we end our program this morning with Tasbih Kafarah and Surah Wal-As. Alhamdulillah. Thank you, everyone. And wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Oke, terima kasih semua. Assalamualaikum.
Evaluation form tak buka pun.